So much. So I have a little bit of connection with FMS. In the year 2009, I guess I was one of the business presenter in your college. Thank you so much for inviting me after a decade or so. So, we all are talking about what were the, lagging factors about this, unicorn scenario right now existing in India. But what about the, leading factors? Right. So if we talk about number of startup who got registered with the startup ecosystem in India is roughly 63,000, and we are talking about 100 unicorns, right? So roughly one out of 1,000 startup is becoming an unicorn. So in unicorn, we need to understand that this is just a number of being valuated as a unicorn. People are now talking about Decacorn, $10 billion valuation, Hectocorn, $100 billion valuation. So the idea is that, after being, as rightly mentioned by, Vikas sir, that it is not a Padam Shri, right? It is a big responsibility because from pre-seed round, so many of the listeners are students, right? So from the bootstrapping to pre-seed to seed to Series A to Series E, there's a long journey, right? And at every stage, you have to prove some milestones which you have achieved. So when I started my journey, when I was back from the US in 2014, the ecosystem actually got too much, friendly to the startups. And in last 3 to 4 years, because of the various nudge effects by government of India in terms of, giving impetus to the startup. Now, being a startup guy is not a taboo, Honorable Prime Minister or people who are actually making the policies are actually promoting students to be entrepreneurs, right? So instead of being a job seeker, can you be an employment creator? And this is being considered as a prestige issues also, that I'm a startup guy, even at the age of say 40 or something, we take pride in saying that, okay, I have 2 startups which I'm running, one is into healthcare, one is into cryptocurrency and stuff like that. So impetus is there, and then a lot of infrastructure has also been provided. So one of my very close friend, who co-founded Razorpay, he started his journey by a small incubation center which was supported by IIT Mumbai, right? So these small things which takes you to those rounds from say pre-seed or conception level to Series E, and then you become a unicorn. You have to have a series of efforts which are concerted in a meaningful direction. We talk about various sectors which have actually bloomed to be a unicorn. Few of them are in fintech, right? Marketplaces, SaaS, and stuff like that. So 3 things which happened after 2016. One is the penetration of internet, right? We have roughly 55% smartphone users right now in India, right? 65% penetration of say broadband access or internet access. Secondly, the UPI system which happened, right? So people are now having access to pay it digitally, right? So people can get money. So the startups like us can get money at a click of seconds. So the turnaround time of those payment system has certainly increased. And thirdly, this last 2 years, which we have seen wherein, people are actually more technological friendly. So earlier, we used to think, okay, startup, buy, sell, or, some value is being created. But what about, the numbers? We have seen multiple startups who have crossed revenues of $100 million, right? So when we talk about valuation, it is not the money which is pumped in terms of the valuation, where a person is putting say $100 million at a valuation of $1 billion, but there are actual revenue numbers which are being supported so that those startup who went till 1 billion can actually go to 5 million. And in last 6 months, we have seen IPOs coming up, right? So they have given an exit to those investors who put in money, right? All this, so like Mr. Vikas, he's an investor himself. So he is investing so that, he may get say 10x or 50x or 100x. So are there avenues of exit which are being considered at a policy level by government? And even if you are not a surplus or a profit-making company, you can go and list in stock market, and people who have invested can actually come out of it by making money. I'll add few more points once the forum is open for discussion. Over to you, Deepak. Regarding this dilution of equity and the DNA structure. To just two examples. The entire food delivery market in India is less than $6 billion. But the valuation of only two companies, Zomato and Swiggy, is much more than $10 billion. Now, what we are betting on here, the market is not there, but we are betting on the lifetime value, and we are also betting on the kind of pie which is going to get increased in, say, 5 years down the time or 3 years down the time, right? So when an investor puts money into you based upon the team and the target audiences which you are catering to and the traction which you have, but then they also look into the kind of volumes which are going to be derived from such business models. People are putting money, one of the highest valued startups called Tesla, they might be, selling fewer number of cars right now, but people are betting on mobility. Many startups in India right now are raising funds for mobility sector because it is very, very certain that EV mobility is going to be the next big thing in India. Similarly, people like us who ventured out into non-fungible tokens or cryptocurrency exchanges, you have seen an amazing rise in the funding ecosystem in last 1 year or so, right? And one more thing is very, very important to understand is that, as an entrepreneur, when you are solving a problem, the problem is not with the equity. The problem is with the runway which you need to have to actually fly, right? So whenever you raise money, say, even if you raise, say, a series A or a seed round, people will ask you, why do you need money, right? And if you have no answer to that question, that they are not going to give you money, right, Deepak? So, whenever a student come to me and say, ki, mujhe paisa chahiye, I need money for what, right? You have to show me the expenses which you are going to incur. They will answer, okay, we want to, do business development or say hire some resources. Then, we need to actually put some money into digital marketing and stuff like that. But that is something which we need to understand from the long-term perspective, right? And after say, I'm putting in money, say $100,000 in your initial seed round, again, you will come to me, say, after 8 months or so that, my money has gone. Now I want to raise, say, a couple of more millions so that I can have a runway of around 1 year or 6 months, right? So once you are, attached to an investor, you also have to take care of that investor. And investor also need to make sure that the money which he has put in into your startup is multiplied, right? So again, he will pump in. So to the audiences which we have right now, majority of them are students, we need to also, let them know that, this entire 1 billion club, when you reach, you also have to take care of all the stakeholders, and the stakeholders will take care of you. And that's why when you start working, the DNA need to be strong. And that DNA is your team, is you, and also the initial investor which are coming up with you. One of the problem which we faced while raising funds was that, who is the lead investor? And those lead investor which we hear about, like SoftBank or Sequoia Capital or, Antler, or these guys never come in seed round. So that initial runway is very, very important. And for that runway, if you need to dilute your equity or say convertible bonds, if you are, very much aware about the ecosystem of what VC plays around, then you have to make sure that, you also take care of all those stakeholders so that your larger goal is achieved. Over to you, Neha or Vikas or Deep. Real quick, since we are addressing students, we need to also understand, these unicorns which we are talking in the year 2022, they actually started somewhere in 2015, 16, 17. There is a startup called Mensa who got a $1 billion club membership in just 6 months, but these are exceptions. So we are talking to students, and I think what is the next big thing which they could focus to be part of the unicorn club in, say, next 5 years, right? Vikas sir is there, who graduated in 85 or 90s. I'm there, and Neha is there. I think Deepak is much younger. We graduated in 2000s, right? So 90s was for Web 1.0. Okay, Web 1.0 is very simple, just one way of communication via internet. Then came, the Facebooks, the Google, the YouTubes, all this thing in 2000s, right? 2000 to 2010, right? And now we are talking about Web 3.0, right? So the migration from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 is inevitable, right? So if a new guy approaches me, what is the next thing which we do? Yes, whatever you can do in Web 2.0, you can also do it in Web 3.0. The things are changing very, very fast. And we also need to make sure that, the coming generation, which are going to be part of the startup ecosystem, should focus on more efficient, more decentralized system, wherein these monopolies of, the Googles and Facebooks of the world are taken away. These business models which we are thinking right now or in the last 1 decade or 2 decades is going to change drastically. It will be more peer-to-peer. It will be more decentralized. It will be less monopolized, right? And the power will be with the people who are actually using it, right? So there is the opportunity wherein if we talk to the new generation who is coming into the startup ecosystem, should also think about being part of this new dynamics called Web 3.0. One quick suggestion, just to complement what Vikas has mentioned. See, many of the students who are listening are at ideation stage, So one quote which I always follow is, ideation without execution is an illusion. Okay, so, if you just type in Google and say, this is the idea you're working on, there will be like hundreds of thousands of search results. People are working on the same stuff. It's the execution which you are, you have to be master in it, right? And these skill sets cannot be in one person. So you need to also build up a team. So the initial co-founders which you choose, right? Suppose you're a mechanical engineer, and I'm talking about Web 3.0. So right now, people like Deepak and, EdTech is booming. You can learn things real quick, at least to monitor the people who are going to work on these projects, right? So it's very, very important that, just sticking to idea, not pivoting, not validating. Again, the point mentioned by Vikas sir, it is very, very crucial, right? So it's a make or break thing, because you are at your, say 23, 24, 25 years of age, especially, females, right? They may be, having some kind of constraints, people from marginalized societies have some kind of constraints, right? People who are youth also have some kind of opportunity cost. For example, when I was in the US, people were, actually pushing me to apply for, say, these exams like UPSC and everything, so you have so many things in your hand when you are at this age group. You just need to be focused, understand what you are good at, as rightly mentioned by Vikas sir, and also need to work on the idea which you are thinking of and execute it, and also build up a team, and also attract resources, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of people, because at the end of the day, you are fighting with existing, unicorns, and you are going to be a unicorn. How can you be a unicorn? Because you need people, you need resources, you need more time, you need to work as an individual of around 100 people. So one person is equal to 100%. So you are not having 24 hours, you are having 24 into 100. So you have to be very, very effective. So it's a journey, it's a lifestyle, and you have to be very, very focused once you take this entrepreneurial journey. Because after 5 years or 6 years or 10 years down the line, if you have not learned from the journey which you are having, you will be at a bad position, right? But if you learn in the process, then you may be a serial entrepreneur. You may be a VC at one point in time, and you can also understand business from a different perspective, from the problem solving side of it. So just to summarize, best of luck to everyone, and ho jaye, no problem.